I think we'll go ahead and get started. We'll just see if other people show up at all. So I've got several things I want to show you about the HathiTrust. I should first introduce myself, probably. I'm Ann Barker. I'm one of the Humanities Reference Librarians, and I also work with the Digital Humanities Commons, which uses things like this a lot. So although I think this is probably useful for all fields, it's got particular interest for people in the humanities who are wanting to apply computing to big text collections. But we'll look at this generally and see how it's useful for everybody and give you all a chance to explore it a bit. And then I might talk about some other applications that I've seen it used in other areas. So there's several things I want to cover with you. One is just what is the HathiTrust Digital Library? What's in there? Because sometimes you get this nice screen, but it's hard to say what's behind that screen. We'll look at navigating it, how you can get around in it, and what you can use it for, how you can download books. You can build collections of your own within this. You can provide links to those so you can share them with other people. And then we'll talk a little bit about the HathiTrust Research Center, which is another arm that's looking at how could you apply computing to this great big collection of stuff. And it's still very much in development, so I probably will just be able to show you a few things with that, but I want this to be a lot of time for you to have time to just explore the HathiTrust and see what's there and what would be of use to you in that. So first off, just how to get there from the library's gateway page, and please follow along on your computers because I don't want to just talk. I want you to be able to do things as well. So if you're at the library's gateway page, if you click on Books and Media, then we've got a link to the HathiTrust right here. So this is another way that you can access books through the library. So we've made a link right there. And then once you go there, you can see the URL up here. And anybody has access to the HathiTrust. You don't have to be at MU, so you can certainly send information about this to other people. This is sort of a collaborative of many libraries, and the idea was to collect a lot of the things that we had collected physically into a digital collection and then make them available to other people. So the HathiTrust started in 2008. If you click on About here, you can see some different things about it. It started in 2008, was a collaboration of the Big Ten libraries from the Big Ten schools, and from the University of California. And those libraries had worked with Google. Google had gone through their libraries and digitized all of their books. So they created these digital libraries. But then they wanted to have their own copies of the digital content saved. There was a lawsuit involving Google Books. They were afraid, if Google's holding the stuff, it might vanish. So they wanted to have copies themselves. So that was the backbone of this that started this. But then libraries have continued to digitize other things, and those have added as well. So there's some overlap between this and the Google Book project, but there's additional materials both in Google Books and in HathiTrust. So you may sometimes want to search both of them. A lot of libraries have joined this since 2008. So clicking on the partnership community, you can see the different libraries that have joined, and that can give you some idea of the range of things that might be here. So some pretty large university systems have added a lot of their collections. So it's not always everything that library holds, but a lot of things. And since we're building this collectively, we also don't need to duplicate each other much. So for example, at MU, we might check and see, is there a digital copy of something we hold already there? We don't need to digitize it again to put it in. So we're sort of collectively building this big online library. You might wonder where the name Hathi comes from. If you know Hindi or Urdu, you know that Hathi is the word for elephant. Elephants never forget. So that's the background to why this is called the HathiTrust Digital Library. We're trying to build something that will preserve all this knowledge for all time. Let's go into the digital library here. So you see our digital library, just to get an idea of the content of what is here. If you look on the right, you can see statistics and visualizations. And if you click on this, this will give you some idea of the volume of things in here. I'm going to adjust this light a little bit. Will this mess up the recording, Stefan, if I adjust the lights?
That's fine. Just like that.
Oops. Let's see if I can make that a little more visible on the screen there. That's that a little bit better. So some statistics. You can see down here in the lower right, 11 million volumes, 6 million book titles, 300,000 serial titles, 4 billion pages and growing. So I think these statistics are updated all the time. And then you can see at the bottom it says about 35% is in the public domain. And that's an important distinction to keep in mind. The United States copyright law has some restrictions on how you can share materials that are covered by copyright. So in the HathiTrust, they're indexing everything that's in there, but you can only see the full view of things that are out of copyright, that are in the public domain. So you can get some information about the books that are still covered by copyright, but you can only fully see the things that aren't in copyright anymore. You can also see some breakdowns here. If you wanted to get an idea of how much there is in different areas of content, if you click on call number for all volumes, this loads up a little bit slowly, but they give you this nice chart here. And here you can see by call number range, each call number indicates a subject area, and it shows you how many volumes are in that subject area and what percentage of the total database it makes up. So what you might want to do right now, why don't you each look through this and find a call number area that's of interest to you, and when you do, just go ahead and click on this title here on the line. I'm going to find one that looks good to me. Oh, let's see, I'll go back up. I'll go into Russia here. So when you click on that call number range, it actually does a search and pulls up all the books and journals that have that call number associated with them from the library that contributed it. And here you can see all the items showing up here. And then if you wanted to see the ones that are available in full view, you can click on this tab and see the entire books. Now it is kind of slow. So why don't you just take a second or two and just get an idea of what's in there in a subject area that's of interest to you, and get an idea of what's there, and then we'll look further at how you would actually search this. While you're looking, I'll put also, you can see it broken down by date range. It'll break it down by decade or by language as well. I think this is really useful if you're looking for things where in a language that our collection may not be real strong in. You can see things. This has things in all different languages, so you can get a little bit of an idea here. It's listing them in the order of how many volumes per language they're in. But you can see all different languages are covered in full view as well of many of these languages. Is everybody finding something useful? Okay, well let's go then. I'm going to go back to the main page of the HathiTrust, and we'll look at how to search this a little bit. You can see at the main page, actually what we want to do first before I jump into this, what we want to do is log in. Anybody can look at things in the HathiTrust, and for things that are in full text, anybody can download one page at a time. But if you're logged in as a member institution, you can do more. So right now, if you'll click on Log In, and then you drop this menu down to choose University of Missouri, and then click on Continue. At this screen, it's asking for your paw print. And this is how it's going to verify that you're actually associated with the university and that we're a member institution. So you just type in your university email, the beginning part, and whatever your password is for your email. Oh no, I have an error. I hope I just mistyped. Oh no, this is not good. If I can't get in, I won't be able to show you a number of things. Try one more time. Yeah, why don't you try, Cindy, and see if it'll let you in. Is everybody else getting in okay? I wonder if I left it logged in on my computer downstairs and it doesn't like that.
You know what? Let me log out because I'm like.
Okay, maybe that's what it's doing. I'm not quite sure what's going on or if there's a problem with this computer. Try one more time. Whoops. There you, oh, you're all right.
Oh, no.
Well, maybe it's a problem with this computer. I think let's just continue, and I think I can describe around this without having to go in here. This is very odd.
Can we try one more time? I had to put my browser in. You just want to go.
Well, let me try opening it in a different browser and see if that makes a difference. I don't want to hang people up too long on this. Okay, success. Hooray, it knows who I am. So who knows what the problem was, but at least it's working now correctly. So you can see this unlocked this part, so I've got the capacity to download entire books, which can be really helpful. If you wanted to save an entire book, you could do that. One thing I know people have done is they've sometimes downloaded entire books, and then at the bookstore, they have a machine called the Espresso Book Machine, and you can take a file in digital format and they can actually create a paperback book for you. It's very inexpensive. So you could download something from here, and then if you want a print copy, they can, it actually comes out like a nice bound book. You can set it up in the format that you want. So let's look now at how you can search. And I think the two parts there are to the HathiTrust Digital Library are you've got a full text interface, which would be similar to what you may have encountered with Google Books. It's actually searching within the text of the books. So that's a big advantage over the library catalog where you're just searching a description of the book. But you also have the added capacity of having a library catalog front end. And that can give you a little bit more control. If you've searched in Google Books, you know, it looks for the words wherever they show up. But sometimes that gets you things that aren't quite relevant, or you can't specify a date range, or you're wanting to look for something by a particular publisher and you can't do that. So you've got a little bit more control here because you've got both. So you can use this quick search here, or you could use the advanced catalog search. So I'm going to first search in the catalog and just show you what you could do with this. So let's say I'm going to do a search in all fields. So this is doing a keyword search in the title, the subject, the author, all over the place. And I'm interested broadly in Indians or Native Americans. But I then want to look for things that are specifically dealing with Indians in Missouri. So I'm going to focus this by saying, look for the subject heading Missouri that's attached to the description of this book, but then look for anything that mentions Indians as well. I'm going to untick the full text view so I can look for anything. And you can see different ways you could limit this. You could limit by date range, format type, language. So there are lots of different ways that you can make your search more specific. So I'll run my search. And you can go ahead and run a search of something that's of interest to you as well if you want to try this. You can see again, I can see all the items, or I could look at just the things that are available in full text. And then on the left here, I'll get rid of that, I can see different ways I could break this down. So it pulls out all these other subject headings. I can see the different authors, the languages. It tells me how many books are available in each language, where they were published, which dates, what language, what format they were in, which library they came from. So there are lots of ways I could narrow this down. Now, when I look at these, I know I had one in mind. You can see it says limited search only. So I can't actually see this book because it was published in 1964. It's still under copyright. So you can see I get this screen, and this can be a little frustrating. I can't really see the book itself, but I can search within the text. So a lot of the Indians in Missouri were what were called the mound builders. They built Indian mounds. That was a characteristic. So I'm going to look for the word mound within this book to see if this book talks about the Indian mounds at all. And it's searching. This is the kind of result that I'll get. So this, again, it can be a little bit frustrating, but it does show me. I can see a number of pages and how many matches are on each page. That does let me know, okay, this looks like it would be a relevant book. Even though I can't see the whole book on the screen here, it looks like it might be a good book, would contain stuff that I want. And then if I look over here on the left, there are a couple of things over here. This is interesting. Usually there would be a little Find It at MU link over here, and it's not showing up on this screen. If you're in Firefox, it might be showing up. But I do get this Find in a Library link. So if I click on this, this connects out to WorldCat, which is like a big online catalog of most of the libraries in the world. And it sorts things by zip code. So down here in the list, I can see the State Historical Society has a copy, the University of Missouri has a copy. If I were located somewhere else, it could detect my zip code and search that way. If I click here on book, it links to our catalog, and I can actually see where this book is located. So through the HathiTrust, I've determined this is a book that's relevant for me, and I can even see which pages would be relevant, and then I have to go through the Find It at MU link or the Find in a Library link to find where this book is in our collection. So it's an indexing feature for those things that it can't show me in full text, which can still be somewhat useful, I think. So I'm going to go back a few steps. Now on the full view thing, I've got some added advantages here. So I've got the same subject headings and stuff down the side, but I've got some ways I can look at things now. So sometimes you'll see something like this where it says view the record to see the multiple volumes. So this is something where there are many volumes of the same thing, or many volumes in this thing, and they have the image is actually linked from the individual volume record. So once I go into individual volumes, I can see each volume has an icon. I can link to that and see these pages. And there are a variety of things you can do here. You can search within the text again to find where it's highlighted. There are different ways to view it. Right now it's set up with a page turning feature, so I can just go page by page and look through the book. That's not too interesting, is it? It's kind of blank. There's a scrolling option here on the left, so if I wanted just to scroll down, I can set that up so I don't have to turn pages. This option is actually, whoops. This option is something that shows thumbprints of each page. This could be helpful, particularly if you're looking for illustrations in a book and you really don't want to page through it all. The illustrations sometimes aren't very searchable because if they don't have captions or any text associated with them, you can't search for that. So the thumbnail view is kind of nice because you can see exactly where there are illustrations in the book, and then you can click on that to go straight to that page and take a closer look at it. And you get, fairly good resolution. You can enlarge the picture, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can rotate it in different ways. You can jump to a specific page. So if you had a citation and you wanted to jump to that page, you just type the page number in here and then click on Go, and it will go to that point. You also have a table of contents box here. So you can click on that and see the table of contents or the index. I found the index is often really helpful to find what specific page I want to go to. So you can go through and see this. Sometimes there is actually plain text. I'm finding this is not always there. Let's see if this shows up in this case. Okay, in this case it does. The way these things are digitized, it's using a scanning technique that then uses optical character recognition to make the text searchable. So this plain text is actually what's being searched. It's matching the shapes of the words and then linking to an image file. This is sometimes helpful to check because you can see if there are typos. The optical character recognition or the scanning doesn't always translate the text exactly right. So sometimes if you think you're getting strange results, it might be helpful to look at the plain text and kind of see what's going on with this. Is this something strange that I'm not getting good results? So apart from searching, on the left-hand side, then you can see a variety of things. We still have, over on this side, if I can make it work, back up. We can see the catalog record. We can find in a library. You can see you could download a specific page. Or since we're logged in as a member institution, we could download the entire book as a PDF. Anyone can download things one page at a time, but partly to keep people who aren't members from just downloading large swaths of material, they've limited this, so we could just, you have to be a member to download a bit like that. Okay. Any questions on this so far, just on getting around this page? Looking good? Okay. Okay, I'm going to go back to full text here at the top, and you'll notice we've also got an advanced full text search. So before, we were searching within the catalog record, which is just the brief description of the word. At this point, we could actually search within the text, but then we've also got all of these different limits in this way. And you can see you can search for the full text wherever it shows up, or you could specify you want just the text block of the book, or you want to search just in the name of the publisher, or a whole variety of ways. So you can do more specific searching. This can let you get very specific. And again, you can also combine it with a subject heading search. So for example, if I wanted to look for things about Forest Park in St. Louis, I might put in Forest Park in quotation marks so it knows I want that exact phrase. I could also specify this by saying I want this exact phrase here. And then I'm going to tell it to look for Forest Park wherever that shows up. But then I'm going to look for St. Louis Mo, and I want that as an exact phrase. I'm going to look for this in the subject heading. So I'm sort of, again, I'm combining the strength of a full text search with the catalog. The strength of the library catalog is that it categorizes things by topic. And then at this point, I'm going to say that I really only want things that are full view only, and I could specify date ranges, etc. Okay. So this lets me get to some things that are really specific. So from the title, you know, this looks like it would be pretty broad. It's just an annual report. But if I go to the full view, I could pull this up. Actually, I want to be in this view rather than all over the place. And then once I've got this on the screen, I do need to search again in the text to see where the matches are. But at this point, I could type in forest, for example. I don't even need to type in Olive Park. And it will show me where the matches show up. So here I can see which words show up on which page, and then I can jump to that specific page and view it. So it lets me do very, very specific searching. This is almost too hard to read. I found this really helpful, and I've used this mainly for doing family history research, and I can put in like the name of a county or a broader category that I'm looking for, and then a personal name or an event or something, and I can go specifically to something that happened within that. So that's kind of a helpful thing to do. Let me go back one step here, 2 steps. Okay. I want to go all the way back to the search page here. Another limit that you have on this full text screen is you could limit to things that are held by the University of Missouri. And this has a couple of uses. This is one, if you're searching in the full text, but you actually want to be able to get a physical copy of the book. This might be helpful. It will limit just to things that we know are here, where you can get a physical copy. This is also useful for people who have a visual impairment or a visual disability. The copyright law allows us to open up things that would normally be prohibited for people with visual impairments, as long as we own or have in the past owned a copy of that book. So Cindy over here is our disability services librarian. So this is, Cindy, what you would need to do to identify if someone with a visual impairment needed to have a digitized copy of the book so that it can be read by a machine that helps them with reading. Even though those of us who don't have an impairment would not be able to see this stuff in digital format, it would be allowed to be opened up for someone who did have a visual impairment. They'd have to talk to Cindy. It has to go through a designated representative to do that. But if you know of anybody who needs something like that, that's an extra service. But we can only do that with things that we either own now or once owned, and this is the way to find that out. Okay, let me stop again for a couple of seconds and just give you a chance to play around with this a little bit. And if you have questions, I can answer them, and then we'll move on to some other things with this. But I want to give you a chance. I think you can find out more about this by actually using it and trying it out and seeing what you can do. And I'm curious too to find out what you find useful from this, if you're finding things that look good. I was going to tell you one thing I noticed on the format. You can see on here they've got like audio formats and things, but actually it's only the text associated with that, so it's like liner notes and things like that. But if you wanted to find like the libretto or something that was an insert and a recording, it would be that kind of thing. And I don't know how well they've done on scores. I didn't check that out, but that's another possibility. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. They may be in better shape than the scores we have online, actually, or in the physical collection, as the paper gets so brittle. Are you finding some good things? Come around and spy on people. Are you finding some interesting things?
Yeah, it's pretty cool seeing like some of the first documentation of certain like species, which is something that I'm interested in. So.
Great, excellent. Look at that! Wow. They do a nice. I think the resolution's pretty good for these as well. Great. Excellent. And you can download it.
Yeah, I know.
There you go. You could format it however large you want it. I'm going to give you another little bit of an idea of what you might find that's not covered by copyrights. I've mentioned anything that's still under copyright has limitations in what we can show you. United States copyright right now, the copyright period lasts for 70 years after the death of the author, which is an awfully long time. So right now, anything that was published prior to I think it's 1923 or 1924, if it was published in the United States, it's free, it's open. For things published after that period up until I think it's about 1975, it might be covered by copyright and it might not. The copyright period used to be shorter and the author actually had to take the initiative to renew the copyright. So if they didn't renew it, it might be open. If they did renew it, it might not be. So there's sort of that period where you might be able to find some things, maybe not. And then anything that's published by the United States government is open. So any government reports, so there could be a lot of laws, different reports from different agencies, scientific publications that were sponsored by government funding, those things will probably be open as well. So that's a little bit, gives you some idea of what you can get out of here. Okay, what I wanted to show you here, the other nice thing we can do as a member institution is we can build collections. So you can save a bunch of things into collections. So when you're looking at the full view, if you look over on the left, you'll see this here. And this item I already put in a collection yesterday. So it's already in my collection, which I named Forest Park. I'm going to go back here and see if I find something else that I might want to add to this collection. Let's see. Historical and interesting places of St. Louis. Let's see what that might look like. Okay, I don't have that in a collection yet. So over here on the left, I can select a collection. I could either make a new one or I could say, okay, I want that to go in my Forest Park collection. So I'll click that. I just click Add. And that whole book has gone into my collection. Now you can see up at the top, I have this link to my collections. And I can go into this. And here I can see my different collections. So here's my collection on Forest Park. And right now it's a private collection. I could make this public. I'm still working on this, so I'm not quite ready to make it public. If you know, what you could do with this, if you wanted to make a collection to share with the students, for example, for a class or with a research group, you could build a whole collection of things that are useful and then you can make that public and share it with them. But I can click on my Forest Park collection and I can see all the materials that are in this collection, which is fine. That's a nice way to hang on to them. What's even better is I can search across this specific collection. So if I wanted to do research on something and I didn't want to look everywhere in the entire collection of the HathiTrust, but I just wanted to look in books on a particular topic or a particular date range, I could build a collection and then just search within that group and find all the matches. So this can be useful in a couple of ways. If you want to study that particular topic, if you want to share things with somebody, if you just want to collect things for convenience, you could do that. But then other people have made collections that are public that are also really useful. So if you click up here on collections, you can go into here and see all the different collections that people have made. You can see some people are just playing around. There's not very much there. What I find really helpful is to look at the featured collections. And you can see people have made some really useful things. Again, I'm aware of this being used mostly in the humanities areas, but for example, the English short title catalog, this is a database that a lot of libraries have that list all the books that were published prior to 1700. It goes from about 1400 something to 1700 something, but it's not full text searchable. It just links out to photographic images of the text. Well, someone has gone through the HathiTrust and they've found the full text of all of those books and have created this collection. So now people can search the full text. This isn't all the items that are in that database, but it's a lot of them. So you can actually search within the full text, and they've made this freely available. So anybody could use this. And you can see some others have made collections of ancient manuscripts or Ann Arbor history. So you can see if you had in mind something that would be useful to other people out there and you had the time and the diligence to go in and put this collection together, you could be creating basically a reference work or a publication that would be useful to others. You can also search in the collections at the top. Another way to sort of find things that are useful is if you go to all here, you could limit it by things that have a certain number of items. So you might not want the things that just have one or two because someone's been playing around with it. But you could see all the things that have been put together that have, in this case, over 1,000 items. So you can see some different types of publications or categories here that people put together. I'm looking to see if there is a link to these. I can't see up here if this is giving us an actual link. Let me see if I do this. Oops. Okay, good. It's possible to capture that link to the specific collection, and then you could go to that specific items. So like, for example, if you wanted to use this with a class or with a group, you could make a link to a collection. So if you wanted to use this for course readings or put it into a Blackboard or something like that, you could do that. You can also do that with individual items, and I forgot to point this out earlier, so let me go and show you. If you have an item on the screen, besides downloading, on the left, here you've got these different possibilities to share. So you can make a link to the book as a whole, you can make a link to the specific page, you can embed the book in a blog or a web page. So there are a whole variety of ways you could use this. Any questions on this so far? You feeling pretty comfortable with how you could use this? Okay, we've got a few more minutes, so I want to show you some of the stuff that's going on with the research portal as well. Oops, go back here. If I go back home, you can see down in this lower left corner there's a link to the HathiTrust Research Center. This is trying to make all of this text useful in some new ways. You've got this huge collection of all this digitized text. It means you could apply some computer algorithms to it to do some work that would pull things out. It's often what's referred to in the digital humanities as distant reading. So you're not doing a close reading of things, but you're looking for trends across big bodies of text. I'm going to just show you a couple of slides from a presentation that someone else did. What the HathiTrust Research Center is doing is they've got the HathiTrust Digital Library, which is the collection of texts, and then they're working with CSER, which is this is Software Environment for Advanced Scholarly Research, I think is what this stands for. This was developed at University of Illinois, and it's a set of algorithms and tools that can be used to do this kind of data mining and text analysis. So they've created this body of text, and then they're putting a front end on that uses some of these tools. This gets a little complicated. It would be a whole separate workshop in itself, but I want to just give you an idea of what people could do with this. And again, this is a little bit slow. They've got different algorithms. Some allowed you just to do like a tag cloud, which is just looking at how often do words occur within a certain body of text. So things that are larger show up more frequently. So that could be useful in some ways. There's also another algorithm which compares different texts. So this is looking at the frequency of words in one play compared with all of Shakespeare's other tragedies. So it's a relative ranking of how often words show up. And again, I think some people have some questions, well, how useful is this? You really have to phrase your research question well to figure out what would you actually use this for. Another feature is a timeline feature where it can actually identify dates that are mentioned in a body of text, and it plots the different occurrences of the dates across a timeline. So you could see, for example, this might be useful in historic scientific research. When was something mentioned? And can you see the different dates when it was mentioned, kind of track the development of an idea potentially. And this also does, it allows for some encoding of different relationships. This is a little bit hard to read. This is showing the juxtaposition of different words. I've also seen it used to show how different characters might relate to each other in a text, or I've seen a diagram of how Alexander the Great related to lots of different people. So this takes some additional encoding. You have to go into the text and say this is a personal name, this is a geographic name, but it lets you draw these kinds of diagrams to see how different things relate. Let's see if we've got any more. Topic modeling, this is another one where someone developed lists of words that express different topics, and then they looked for groupings of those words within Dickens' works. They could see associations of different words or different word patterns. So again, I'm not sure how relevant this would be for all of you. This is something that's becoming more common in the humanities. And it's often what people were doing intuitively just in doing close reading, and this just allows you to do it at a larger scale. So you can look at all 19th century literature or that kind of thing. It gets a little complicated because you do have to identify a valid corpus of work, which works would really be useful, and then you've got to look and make sure the text that it's actually searching is very clean. So if the optical character recognition didn't work well, or there are different spellings you hadn't encountered, it takes some cleaning up before you even get to apply the algorithm. But let me show you a little bit about how this works in the HathiTrust. And again, this is just kind of giving you an idea. And I won't actually ask you to do this stuff because it gets a little bit complicated. You can go into the HTRC portal and workset builder. And actually, I found this did not work as well in IE. So I'm going to go back to, let's see if Firefox will let me log in. Okay. Well, let's see if this will work. It's actually a separate login to get to the research center. And let me see. Here we go. That I found this week as I was preparing the workshop, I found they were having technical difficulties with their login mechanism, and it took multiple steps to try to get this set up. So we'll see how this will work. There are two different parts to this. There is the work set portion and the algorithm portion. So you can see up here under work sets, they have some work sets that are already set up. Let's see if we can see these without a login. No, it needs my login. Okay. Whoops. Oh dear. Try this again. It's a great big long old password here that they gave me. Oh, one more try. Okay, let me try this or this other way and see if it'll actually work. Okay, well, it looks like I may not be able to show you this, which is frustrating. Let me try one more. Actually, let me try closing this out, and we'll try one more time to see if I can get in. While I'm trying to get this up and running again, I'll just describe to you what it can do. It has the set of work sets, and there are some pre-existing work sets that people can draw on, or it also has a mechanism where you can build your own work set. So you can search through the HathiTrust Digital Library and put things into a work set that you've created. And then there's a separate set of algorithms which have been developed at University of Illinois and at Indiana, and it lets you take that algorithm and run it against the work set that you've chosen. And then it takes a little time, depending on how big the work set is and how complicated the algorithm is, so that the results aren't immediate, but it then has a results category where you can go back and see the results of the search you've run. and it will display a work tag or a timeline, that kind of thing. I think there are also some more complicated things that you can do with it that I haven't grasped yet. I'm finding the technical apparatus, the descriptions, and the help features are not as well developed as I would like. So I think that would be a whole separate workshop and experience just to learn how to do that. But if any of you are interested in that, or if you should want to learn about that in the future, let me know. And that's something we can certainly explore, and we can also get help from the people at the HathiTrust Research Center, which is based in Indiana, and explore that some more. I'm going to try just logging in all the way from the beginning. Let's see if I can get in. Okay, I'm in to that extent. Okay, I think I'm in. Let's see how this looks then. Okay, here we go. So I can see a list of work sets. So I could pick the set on anarchism, and I can see exactly what's in this work set. So I can see which books have been chosen that are in this work set. And then I could choose an algorithm. And when you look over these, this gives you an idea of what the algorithm will do. Some of this gets into computer speak, which I find a little difficult, but you can get some idea of what this algorithm is going to do. You can give your job a name. So I'm going to do test 5. And then this is where you would select your collection. So I did anarchism, for example, and chose that. And this one is actually comparing 2 different sets. So I'm not sure, so we could just stay with Gaskell and we'll see what that does. Probably not much. And I submit my search, and it will go run. You can see it's staging. So it's going to take it a little bit while to run. And then here you can see the things that I did yesterday, where I ran different tests just to see. So if I went to the results category up here, I'll get that list of that, and then I can see hopefully these different results. And these different things give you different information. So some of it's just telling you information about how the thing was run. I can get some text information here so I can see different, again, the sort of back-end computer stuff. Here I get the tag cloud so I can see all the words that showed up. You can see the problem of not having edited the text, and I don't really care about all these ands, tos, thes, but I would have to go in and annotate or tinker with the work set a bit to exclude those things, or use a stop word list so I'm only getting significant words. So it takes some tinkering around to really get something worthwhile out of this. But I think you can kind of begin to see the potential for this, where you can take a big set of text and then apply these different algorithms to it. Back to results here and see if there's anything else interesting. So now this is cute. It's going to take a little bit while for it to run. I'm not sure any of these other tests are really that interesting. I'm realizing it takes some time to really figure out a good way to do these and to get really good results out. Again, so just running sort of tag clouds. Does that help somewhat to know a little bit? I'm sorry I'm not proficient enough at this to really show you how it could be effective, and I think some people in the field have some questions too. How useful is this? How not? It's a technique that's been used a lot in computational linguistics in the past. It's coming more into vogue to be used in doing cultural history and literary studies, but I think it's still, there's still some debate about how useful it is. And you can see it's very easy to do something with it. Whether the something really produces significant information, I think that takes a little bit more finesse to do that. But at least at this point, I'd like you to be aware that's the ambition for this tool, is to create a great big data set that other people could use and a collection of algorithms, so people don't need to know how to write an algorithm themselves, but to put that all together in one place so it can really become a useful research tool for lots of different purposes. And I'm most familiar with uses in the humanities. I think the people who've developed this were also doing work in the history of the sciences or in other areas of the sciences, looking at the proliferation of new terms and comparing different linguistic applications in the sciences as well. So it's not exclusively useful for the humanities, but can be useful for other things. Do any of you have any questions, or did you find something you thought was useful you'd like to share with others? That's what I haven't quite figured out how to do, because I've seen just the sort of preordained algorithms that they have. So I'm not sure. I imagine there must be a way to do that, and I just haven't learned that enough. There is another tool. It's not part of the HathiTrust called Voyant, which does allow you to do that. The problem is you have to get your data set together yourself, and that's the problem. Since this, in HathiTrust, you can download in PDF format. I haven't quite figured out yet if you can download in a text format that is actually readable by a computer. So I'm still learning some of these tricks. Now you could, it's not quite the same, but if you're doing a full text search just through the collection, you could OR a bunch of words together, and then you could see, I think you'd only see for each document how often those words come up and go to those positions. But if you just wanted to locate the places in the text where they show up, you could do that.
But searching through an entire collection is possible.
Right, yeah, so you could build your collection and search for keywords within that collection, right? So if you want to just locate where those words are, you can do that. If you wanted to see the number of occurrence and where they clustered, that's where you'd want to use more of the data mining capacity. But yeah, and you could even, you need to build your collection, but let's see, let me go back here. If you're in the full text search, for example, if I can get this to go home. Okay. Depends on how well you can finesse your search. Like if you wanted to look within works by a particular author, you could, of course, in the advanced full text search, you could say, look for this author's name and then look for these words within text authored by that person. And then you could limit it by date range and by language. So you could, set up a collection on the fly to the extent that a catalog, a typical library catalog, allows you to do that. So if you're looking for like a particular author or a particular publisher, geographic area, something like that, that's probably possible. One of the things that some of the people at HathiTrust are working on is, what if you want to build like a collection of female composers? Well, you can't tell that just from the author's name. So someone has to go in and tag each record and say, this author is female, this author is male. So they're working on developing that kind of tagging that would allow that kind of build, or like ethnicity or race, age, things like that. It's just added information that we haven't had in the past. But that's one of the things they're wanting to do, is how do you make, we've collected all these texts, we've collected all this information, how do we make it really useful to researchers? What added components do we need to put in to do that? So we'll see where we are in the next few years. Any other questions or things you found that look good? Did everybody find something useful or interesting? Okay. Alrighty, well, it is 2 o'clock, so time for us to cease, but thank you all for coming, for being attentive, and I apologize for the little technical glitches we had. That's real life. And if you do find you have questions in the future, please get in touch, or if you are just curious if there's a way to use this that you've thought of and you're not quite sure how that would work, let me know, and we can certainly pursue that further and learn some more about this together.